Imagine you're walking down the street and you see someone wearing a shirt with a deeply offensive slogan. Or maybe a toxic, hateful comment seeps into your feed online. It suddenly makes your stomach drop. The immediate, logical reaction is obvious. If a message is clearly hateful, mean, or factually wrong, the government should step in and shut it down to protect everyone else. But if you read the 45 words of the First Amendment, you won't find a single distinction between good ideas and bad ones. It simply dictates that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. James Madison, the primary architect of those words, knew exactly what he was doing. He designed these protections specifically for the speech that is most difficult to hear, moving past the safe, polite conversations everyone already agrees on. The absolute protection of speech we despise acts as the system's primary structural defense against tyranny. Madison didn't even want to write a Bill of Rights at first. He thought listing out specific rights was a dangerous exercise, and that creating mere paper barriers wouldn't actually stop a corrupt government from doing whatever it wanted anyway. The Anti-Federalists refused to accept that. They argued the new federal government would inevitably run unchecked and crush individual freedoms if those liberties weren't explicitly carved out in ink. This diagram illustrates what Madison eventually realized. We call it the marketplace of ideas. In a free public square, people accept helpful ideas and push jagged, hateful ones to the margins. Bypassing this marketplace to ban bad speech outright creates a mechanical flaw. You must appoint a monolithic judge to decide what is bad. Give the government the authority to ban speech it deems harmful, and you automatically hand those in power the perfect legal tool to silence their political rivals. A toxic idea in the public square is unpleasant, but a government possessing a legal monopoly on the truth is lethal. This exact dynamic played out in the 1790s, during the very first major stress test of the young republic. The Federalist Party passed the Alien and Sedition Acts under the guise of protecting the nation. In reality, they used these laws to legally arrest journalists and everyday citizens whose only real crime was criticizing the government in print. Madison and Thomas Jefferson fought back with the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, arguing that silencing dissent destroys the very mechanism used to hold leaders accountable. The Sedition Act expired shortly after, leaving us with a permanent historical verdict. The moment a government is allowed to ban harmful speech, it will classify its own critics as the harm. This doesn't mean the First Amendment allows total anarchy. There is a highly specific, legally calculated threshold where the government is required to step in. This diagram maps that exact legal boundary. On the left, we see a massive gray area of protected expression. Speech loses absolute protection only when crossing into a tiny, sharply defined red zone, causing direct, immediate physical harm. If you incite a crowd to violence or issue a true threat, you trigger the exception. Those words act as a weapon. By restricting government intervention strictly to moments of physical danger, the law forces uncomfortable, hateful, and offensive ideological speech to remain safely out of the state's reach. If deeply offensive speech causes real pain for vulnerable people, why is leaving it alone the safest legal option we have for those exact same groups? Look at the civil rights movement. Activists utilized the absolute protection of free speech to demand integration and equality. At the time, local governments and powerful majorities deemed those exact messages deeply offensive and dangerous. Or consider the students in the 1969 Tinker versus Des Moines case. They had zero political power, yet they relied on free speech to protest the Vietnam War by wearing these black peace armbands, legally overriding the demands of school authorities. These massive assemblies and ideological campaigns only survived because the state was legally restrained from shutting them down. Free speech serves as a tool for the powerless. If popular majorities could ban what they dislike, social progress would be illegal. Modern movements tackling inequality and civil rights still rely on the exact same legal mechanics James Madison designed over 2 centuries ago. Fiercely defending the rights of a speaker whose message you despise is an act of self-preservation. It denies the government the legal precedent to ever silence you. Tolerating words we hate is the mandatory structural tax we pay to live in a free society. We protect the bad ideas to build an impenetrable wall around our own permanent right to dissent.